At first, it looked like WWE in 2020 would be just another normal year. I mean, we got the epic return of Edge. Drew McIntyre won the Royal Rumble. The Undertaker won some random trophy at the Saudi show. But apart from that, it seemed like business as usual. But then, the pandemic hit, and WWE straight up turned into Bizarro World. Suddenly, you had Seth Rollins literally trying to make Rey Mysterio go blind. The Undertaker and AJ Styles gave us this legendary meme. Baron Corbin was throwing people off the WWE headquarters and attempting straight-up murder. Becky Lynch got pregnant. A bunch of ninjas started invading Raw for some reason. Roman Reigns returned after months away and suddenly had maximum aura as the head of the table. Randy Orton went on a legend-killing spree. And somehow, through all the chaos, WWE kept getting wild with cinematic matches and virtual LED screens in the Thunderdome. So what made WWE in 2020 so bizarre yet so entertaining? What were the feuds, the moments, and the decisions that defined WWE's strangest year? And how does WWE in 2020 compare to WWE today? Let's rewind the clock and revisit the year WWE lost its mind. Our story starts at the Royal Rumble in Houston, Texas. Just like every year, fans were excited for surprise entrants, shocking eliminations, and the promise of WrestleMania dreams coming true. But nobody was prepared for what happened at number 21. The countdown hit 0. The familiar guitar riff of Metalingus blared through the speakers. And after 9 years away, Edge walked onto the stage as the arena exploded. Fans were on their feet, watching a man who'd been forced to retire in 2011 due to career-ending neck injuries stand in a WWE ring once again. Edge was running the ropes, hitting spears, and it felt like we were back in 2006 again. It didn't matter that he didn't win. The rated R superstar was back, and wrestling felt whole again. But Edge's return wasn't the only story that night. Drew McIntyre had spent years rebuilding his career after being released in 2014. He'd worked on the indies, reinvented himself, and returned to WWE as a monster. Now standing as one of the final 4 in the Rumble, Drew faced Roman Reigns in the closing moments. With one devastating Claymore kick, McIntyre eliminated the big dog and pointed at the WrestleMania sign. The Scottish Warrior had won his ticket to the main event. 2 months later at WrestleMania 36, Drew McIntyre defeated Brock Lesnar to capture the WWE Championship. The Performance Center crowd was practically silent due to pandemic restrictions, robbing Drew of his crowning moment in front of thousands. But despite the surreal circumstances, McIntyre became the face of Raw during WWE's most challenging period. Throughout 2020, Drew carried the company with excellent matches against Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, and Randy Orton. He brought legitimacy and intensity to a championship scene that desperately needed both. But while Drew was establishing himself as WWE Champion on Raw, the Universal Championship scene on SmackDown was descending into absolute chaos. The Fiend had been booked as an unstoppable force of nature heading into 2020. Bray Wyatt's terrifying alter ego had dominated SmackDown for months, defeating everyone from Daniel Bryan to Seth Rollins with ease. His supernatural presentation, combined with in-ring dominance, made him feel invincible. But then WWE made a decision that shocked the wrestling world. At Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia, Goldberg squashed The Fiend in just minutes. The Fiend, who had seemed unstoppable just weeks earlier, lost all his mystique in one terrible booking decision. Fans couldn't understand why WWE would destroy the momentum of their most captivating character to put the title on a 53-year-old part-timer. But Bray Wyatt wasn't finished. If WWE wouldn't let The Fiend dominate, he'd find another way to leave his mark. When WrestleMania 36 rolled around in early April, Wyatt challenged John Cena to a match. But what followed wasn't a normal match at all. It was the Firefly Funhouse match, a cinematic masterpiece that deconstructed Cena's entire career. For almost 15 minutes, Wyatt took Cena through different eras of his career, exposing his insecurities and failures. Cena was shown as a ruthless aggression rookie desperate to prove himself, as the doctor of thugonomics trying to be cool, as the Super Cena who buried younger talent, as the desperate veteran clinging to past glory. The match ended with The Fiend pinning Cena in the middle of the ring, giving Bray Wyatt the WrestleMania victory over Cena that might have arrived 6 years too late. It was one of the most talked about matches of the year, and the Firefly Funhouse match proved that when forced into an empty arena with no crowd, wrestling could still create magic by thinking completely outside the box. But speaking of cinematic masterpieces, the Deadman was about to redefine what a wrestling match could be. The Undertaker's career had been winding down for years. Reduced to part-time appearances and nostalgia acts, the Deadman's best days seemed long behind him. His matches against the likes of Goldberg and DX had become increasingly difficult to watch as his body betrayed him. But AJ Styles saw an opportunity. The phenomenal one had joined WWE in 2016 and accomplished almost everything, except one thing: he'd never beat The Undertaker. In early 2020, Styles began calling out Taker, mocking his legacy and claiming the dead man was too old and broken to compete. Styles made it personal by mocking Taker's real-life relationships. At WrestleMania 36, the two were scheduled to face off. But there was a problem. WrestleMania 36 was taking place in an empty WWE Performance Center due to the pandemic. A traditional Undertaker entrance in silence would have been depressing. So WWE made a bold choice. They'd film a cinematic boneyard match instead. On the night of April 5th, fans watched as AJ Styles arrived at a cemetery in the dead of night with his fellow OC members Gallows and Anderson. After this, The Undertaker arrived on his bike looking like the coolest dude on the planet. What followed was 20 minutes of pure entertainment. Styles and his crew were picked off one by one. There were supernatural powers on display. And in the final moments, Taker threw Styles into an open grave and buried him alive. The match was ridiculous, over the top, and absolutely perfect. Without the limitations of a traditional wrestling match, Undertaker could finally move the way his body allowed while still maintaining his legendary aura. The Boneyard match became an instant classic and showed WWE that cinematic matches could work when done right. More importantly, it gave The Undertaker the WrestleMania moment he deserved in what would be his final Mania match. But while Undertaker was literally burying his opponents, another superstar was trying to make his opponents go blind. Seth Rollins had spent 2019 as the babyface champion of Raw, but by early 2020, something had changed. The fans had turned on Rollins, and the Monday Night Messiah had been born. Rollins believed he was the savior of WWE, the leader who would guide the company into the future. His disciples, Murphy and the authors of Pain, followed him faithfully. But Rollins needed to prove his power, and he chose the perfect victim, Rey Mysterio. However, this wasn't any normal feud. Rollins was literally trying to make Mysterio go blind. Dominik Mysterio stepped up to defend his father, but he got tied to the ring ropes and beat up mercilessly by the Messiah. However, while Rollins was terrorizing the Mysterios on Raw, SmackDown was about to undergo a transformation that would define WWE for years to come. Roman Reigns had been missing from WWE TV since the start of 2020. As someone with a history of leukemia, Reigns made the difficult decision to stay home during the early pandemic months. WWE moved forward without him. But in August, everything changed. At SummerSlam, Braun Strowman defended the Universal Championship against The Fiend in a Falls Count Anywhere match. But just as the show was about to close, Roman Reigns made his return and attacked both Strowman and The Fiend, leaving them both laid out. At Payback, Reigns defeated both men to capture the Universal Championship. And just like that, Roman Reigns had turned heel for the first time in his career. Gone was the smiling, fighting babyface who cut corny promos. In his place stood the Tribal Chief, the head of the table, a ruthless and calculating villain who believed he was WWE royalty. Reigns aligned himself with Paul Heyman and made him his wiseman. Heyman provided the verbal skills Reigns lacked, while Reigns provided the intimidating presence Heyman needed. But Roman needed more than just a mouthpiece. He needed everyone to acknowledge him. That's when Roman started psychological warfare on his own cousins and tortured his own family to cement his power. The Tribal Chief wasn't just a heel. He was family-focused, ruthlessly efficient, and genuinely believed he was doing the right thing by forcing his family to fall in line. Over the following months, Jey became Roman's enforcer, caught between loyalty to his family and hatred for what Roman had done to him. The storytelling was nuanced, complex, and some of the best character work WWE had done in years. Roman Reigns had finally found his character, and it would carry him to the top of WWE for years to come. But while Roman was establishing his dominance on SmackDown, Raw was dealing with its own brand of chaos. Randy Orton spent 2020 reminding everyone why he was called the Legend Killer. His rivalry with Edge defined the first half of the year when Orton put Edge back on the shelf and even RKO'd Edge's wife. But Orton wasn't done targeting legends. Throughout the summer, he went on a rampage. He attacked Ric Flair, Christian, Big Show, Shawn Michaels, and Orton had evolved from Legend Killer to outright psychopath. But while Orton was slaying legends, WWE was trying bizarre experiments that ranged from interesting to completely weird. Raw Underground debuted in 2020, with Shane McMahon hosting an underground fight club that felt like a watered-down version of Lucha Underground. Then came Retribution, a faction of masked wrestlers who invaded Raw, destroyed equipment, and the mystery was intriguing until WWE unmasked them and revealed they were developmental talent nobody cared about. Oh, and did I tell you about the time Asuka became the Raw Women's Champion by cashing in on a vacant champion because Rollins forgot to use protection and Becky got pregnant? Or what about the time WWE held Money in the Bank inside the WWE headquarters and Baron Corbin was literally trying to murder people? Yeah, WWE in 2020 was unhinged like that. By the time December arrived, WWE had survived a global pandemic. They'd created stars like Drew McIntyre and solidified others like Roman Reigns. And they'd proven that even without crowds, the show must go on. Looking back now, WWE in 2020 feels like a fever dream. It had cinematic matches, supernatural storylines, and the Bloodline saga on SmackDown reached a new level. Speaking of levels, check out this video next about the 7 levels of WWE wrestlers.